the role and responsibilities of the Whitman County Superior Court Judge? We'll start with Jenna.
Very alarming, actually, that the fentanyl cases here, as far as deaths, fentanyl deaths, related deaths, have drastically increased since 2022. So,
an office where important decisions are made in people's lives every single case, and so it's not something that either of us take for granted. So we appreciate that you guys are all here taking an interest in this position.
Last year, I went before Judge Lively and I asked him if I could be commissioner of the court, and he said that job, that there was no funding and that there was no extra, I couldn't get the job. It wasn't available. And then I find out a couple months later that he had hired Roger Sandberg.
I think it's misleading to present half-truths. Ms. Brozik is currently appointed as the municipal court, Colfax Municipal Court Judge Pro Tem, but she's never actually presided over any single case. There's not been a single case that she has presided over. I don't think that's, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's misleading to tell half-truths. I think that ought to be noted for the record. So I've been presiding over cases for the last 14 years.
There's some issues in the civil side in Superior Court that I don't think Mr. Sandberg is aware of because it is mostly criminal.
So first, I want to return to one issue that Ms. Brozik raised. She indicated that I don't know what's going on because I mainly practice criminal law. I think that is a gross misstatement.
We'll start with Roger Sandberg. Have you ever made any mistakes or decisions you regret while working as a lawyer or judge? What did you learn from the experience?
That's a good question.
Jenna Brozik, have you ever made any mistakes or decisions you regret while working as a lawyer or judge? What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, this is a hard question because
Are there any more questions? If not, this is the last question. Okay. How do you think you can make things better? How much civil law experience do you have in the past 5 years? We'll start with Roger Sandberg.
Well, obviously, this is a question from a Jenna supporter. As I said before,
it's amazing what you guys do.
I think what you're doing is absolutely marvelous.
One, two, three, four.
What's going on?
You don't. There's no expectation of privacy in public.
It's illegal in Washington to record.
It's not though. Yeah, it's a First Amendment. Aren't you guys recording us though? That's kind of a double standard. My right to do this is the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, religion, press, petition, and assemble. What's your right to that? I shouldn't be. If you don't want to be recorded, have a good night. You live in a park, you're paid for it by tax dollars. I'm not. It's the First Amendment. That's why I'm doing it. Hey, yours not. It matters. It's just about more.
An office where important decisions are made in people's lives every single case. And so it's not something that either of us take for granted. So we appreciate that you guys are all here taking an interest in this position because it is a very important position. You know, it's a unique position in the sense that most of the people who vote consistently and regularly usually manage their lives in a way that they don't find themselves in court. Often the people that are appearing before the court are, you know, low-income, repeat offenders in criminal cases, and obviously there's other types of cases, but we greatly appreciate that you guys are taking the time to express an interest in this campaign, and look forward to answering your questions. And as far as some other biographical information, I was born in Moses Lake, Washington. I was raised there. My father was a middle school teacher. He was retired recently, but he's still in Moses Lake. Actually, he's coming over tonight to watch the WSU volleyball game. My mom was a homemaker mostly. She had a variety of jobs, including working in a butcher shop, newspaper route, working as a dental assistant, and mostly caring for us, myself and my 3 siblings. We were raised in the country. I grew up riding horses and milking cows, and just had a great time. After that, I went to, well, first of all, graduated from Moses Lake High School, went to Whitworth College in Spokane, and then from there, I graduated from the University of Washington Law School. And I've been here in Pullman since 2008 practicing law, and so I'm sure we'll get to the rest later on. So thank you.
All right, I guess that's me next. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having us here today, and thank you for League of Women Voters for hosting this event. Thank you, CC, for hosting or moderating. I just want to give a little bit of background about myself. I've lived in Pullman for 17 years. My husband and I have raised our twins here in Pullman, and they are seniors in high school now. So I had a previous career in Los Angeles. I was a gaffer for the film industry, so I did lighting for films and television. And so a lot of the times I would be negotiating with producers because I was head of my department in lighting, and I would negotiate with producers, and they were very fierce, and they would take your firstborn child if you let them. So I knew if I could do the film industry and be head of my department, I knew I could be a lawyer. So I got interested in being a lawyer. I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I met my husband, Jim, who was a professor at the University of New Mexico. And we met, got married, and he got a job offer up here. He's a professor at WSU. And I followed with him, of course, and our twins were 3 months old when we moved here. And I wasn't able to do the film, thing anymore, so I decided to go to law school. I went to law school, my kids were 2 years old, and I graduated when they were 5. After I graduated law school, I passed 2 bars. I passed the Idaho and Washington bar. I've been practicing law since 2010, so I'm licensed in both states. I'm also the owner and managing attorney of Prince and Brozik here in Pullman, so it's right next to the old European restaurant. I'm also an adjunct professor of law at the University of Idaho and a pro tem judge in Colfax. I've also mediated quite a few cases. I have practiced criminal law, civil law, quitting, divorces, adoptions, probates, will contests, guardianships, estate planning, and so on. I think my vast and wide range of experience in all types of cases is going to make me very prepared to handle the jobs coming up as the Superior Court judge. I would say my practice directly mirrors the kinds of cases filed in Superior Court. And my experience as a small business owner here in the community is going to translate well into running an efficient courtroom. I also think that my background in serving the community, I've done a lot of community service, done a lot of volunteer work pro bono. That's going to really help help the job as far as working for the community as the judge. So just wanted to say it. I want to thank you all, and I think my seconds are about to be over here. But I do want to say that I want to make things better for the period for the people in Whitman Court that come in front of me in Whitman County Court. So thank you. I think my time's done.
Thank you. We will now get to the questions. You each have 2 minutes to answer. Your time starts after I finish asking the question and you begin answering it. Okay. Our first question. If you have judicial experience, how did you get to those opportunities and who gave them to you? We will start with Jenna Brozik.
So at this time, I'm the pro tem judge in Colfax Municipal Court. I was appointed the pro tem judge in January, so that was by Judge Robinson. So that's my judicial experience. I'm a pro tem judge there. One of the things that's happening in Whitman County Superior Court is the current judge picks who the commissioner is going to be. As far as who's going to be the commissioner is pretty much the person who's going to stand in for the judge when the judge is sick. And last year I went before Judge Whitman and I asked him if I could be commissioner of the court, and he said that job, that there was no funding and that there was no extra, I couldn't get the job. It wasn't available. And then I find out a couple months later that he had hired Roger Sandberg for that position. So I think what I want to do as the Superior Court judge is change how that's done. I want to make it more apparent. I want to make it more less behind the scenes. So I think everybody should be able to apply as far as if that commissioner position comes up. I would tell other attorneys in the area, hey, this position is up, let's apply. You know, it'd be more transparent, it'd be more public, and so people would know, because now I've been denied that opportunity to be a commissioner for a whole year. My time up.
Thank you. I will repeat the question for Roger Sandberg. So if you have judicial experience, how did you get those opportunities and who gave them to you?
So I have been a district court judge pro tem since 2010 for the last 14 years. I've been presiding over cases in district court for that time. That was from Judge Robinson was the judge who appointed me to that position, again, 14 years ago. And so I was presiding over a variety of cases. In district court, we have traffic ticket cases. I presided over those, no contact orders, small claims cases, criminal cases. I presided over all of those types of cases. I have also been appointed as a Superior Court Commissioner, and Ms. Brozik, I guess, has a beef with Judge Ivey, but that doesn't concern me. I asked the judge, well, first of all, the judge appointed me, they needed somebody to serve, and I'm happy to serve. I served yesterday as Superior Court Commissioner, presiding over cases. And again, I think it's misleading to present half-truths. Ms. Brozik is currently appointed as the municipal court, Colfax Municipal Court Judge Pro Tem, but she's never actually presided over any single case. There's not been a single case that she has presided over. I don't think that's, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's misleading to tell half-truths. I think that ought to be noted for the record. So I've been presiding over cases for the last 14 years. I've presided over Superior Court cases, over District Court cases, felony criminal cases, misdemeanor criminal cases, parenting plans, child support matters. So I've presided over a lot of cases over the last 14 years.
Thank you. So, were you ever denied opportunities to gain judicial experience, and who denied them? We'll start with Jenna Brozik.
Well, that question was answered, I think. And I just want to say that I have no beef with Judge Leidy. I want to just say I have a beef with the process and how people are appointed as commissioner. So if you're appointed as commissioner, you're appointed by the current judge. And if you know that current judge, or if you're friends with that judge, or if you've been familiar with that judge, you may get appointed. And I think that even if you're qualified, you get appointed. But here's the thing, I think that needs to be transparent, needs to be public, it needs to be, people need to be able to apply. I think it needs to be out in the open. I have no qualms about, Judge Leidy, so I just want to clarify that.
I apologize for asking the question, but to give a fair opportunity, Roger Sandberg, I'll ask the same question. Were you ever denied opportunities to gain judicial experience, and who denied them?
I don't think so, and it's not like I've sought out those appointments. Judge Robinson, in 2010, they needed somebody to preside over cases, and so they asked me to preside over cases. Same in Superior Court, they needed somebody to preside over cases, they asked me. So these aren't positions that people are necessarily applying for, and I hear Ms. Brozik's concerned about more transparency in the process. On the other side, I think a court should be able to manage its own staff. Of course, the court has a court administrator. There's a process that we'll go through to apply for that. Superior Court commissioners, district court commissioners. It is, frankly, just under the law, the judge has the authority to appoint commissioners. That's how it works, and it's not really something that the judge gets to. I mean, it's just written in the law that the Superior Court commissioners are appointed by the judge. So I don't know that there's something that necessarily needs to be changed about that process, or that the Superior Court judge would have the power to change in that process. This is, again, not a legislative office. The judge does not write laws.
Thank you. How has your past community service helped you prepare for the bench? We'll start with Roger Sandberg.
So I've done a variety. I mean, we've both done a lot of community service, and you know, Ms. Brozik will say, and she's worked with ATVP, so a lot of attorneys in the area. ATVP, Alternatives to Violence of Recluse, is a great organization. They have, you know, occasionally they'll need people that have come to use their services who need representation in court, and they ask attorneys to represent, and I'm happy to have done that in the past. Another big part of legal service that I've done. I'm currently a member of the Whitman County Community Court team in District Court. We have every second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. We have a community court, which is essentially a lot of people who have are sort of frequent flyers in the court. They have had a lot of cases sometimes, and it's a requirement that they be suffering from a drug or alcohol addiction or a mental health problem to be in the court. And so I've done that as a team member. Just I don't get paid for that. It takes quite a bit of time because it's a full afternoon every second and fourth Wednesday. I've also done, as Ms. Brozik has done, Whitman County used to have a more robust legal services program where attorneys would volunteer in a variety of civil cases. So I've done that. I think that's a good program to get started going, again, in a better manner. We have a lot of attorneys who are sort of doing things on their own, but we don't have sort of an organized program where people can go to get volunteer legal services. So I think that would be good to start.
Thank you. How has your past community service helped you prepare for the bench? Jenna.
So I have worked a lot of pro bono with clients, a lot of civil cases, a lot of family law, a lot of domestic violence. I've worked closely with ATVP for 14 years. So working with ATVP, I've represented clients and victims and survivors of domestic violence. I understand the intricacies and cycles of abuse that occur, and that it's often about control. So that kind of experience has helped me prepare me for the bench. I've worked with criminal defendants as a private defense attorney, and I've done some of those cases for free. So I've learned quite a bit taking those kind of cases, because a lot of times the public defender was going to give them a plea, and they were going to probably have a more severe charge if I didn't step in. And so as a private attorney, I was able to give more time to these criminal defendants, and they were able to get a better resolution to their case. So I've also been a volunteer supervisor for law students at University of Idaho Wills Clinics, so for veterans. I serve on the Plan Giving Advisory Council at Pullman Regional Hospital, and I'm also a volunteer youth soccer and volleyball coach. I think that was one of the best times as far as volunteering in the community, working with children, working closely with people that needed help. So, thank you.
What are the role and responsibilities of the Whitman County Superior Court judge? We'll start with Jenna.
So the role of the Superior Court judge, people come in front of the judge, the judge has to make sure that all the procedures are followed, that basically people get their justice that they deserve in court. So if you have a dispute, if it's a civil dispute, you're going to come in front of the judge is going to help with a resolution and decide that dispute. If it's a criminal case, the judge is going to make sure the procedures are followed correctly, make sure the defendant is appointed an attorney. So there's, I'd say there's criminal and there's civil. And in my experience, on the civil side, there's a lot more substantive decisions that the judge is going to be making on the civil side. And a lot of times in the criminal side, it's a lot of procedural. And from a public records request I did last year, there was 97% of the cases were pled, and so there was only 6 jury trials, criminal jury trials. So a lot of the trials are civil, if you can imagine that. I mean, you don't think that because you hear in the news about all the crimes and everything else, but the majority of the caseload of Superior Court judge is going to be civil, and those are the kind of decisions, and that's what I'm the most familiar with. So.
What are the role and responsibilities of the So for Roger Sandberg, what are the role and responsibilities of the Whitman County Superior Court judge?
So I agree with a lot of what Jenna said. I think she explained it well. Just maybe to provide a little more information, the kind of contrast between what is Superior Court versus District Court. Superior Court hears felony criminal cases, District Court hears misdemeanor criminal cases. Superior Court is going to hear family law cases. Pretty much any case that's going to involve a child is going to be in Superior Court. As far as, the breakdown, Ms. Brozik had some statistics that she's put out, and Mr. Martinek had put out some statistics. I think the accurate representation is the court spends about half of its time on civil versus criminal cases. Cases filed is not really a good representation of what the court spends its time on. Cases filed includes, what is a case? A case includes things called tax warrants. That's maybe, 10 to 20% of cases filed in Superior Court. A tax warrant is the Department of Revenue or the Department of L&I filing something in Superior Court saying somebody in Whitman County owes taxes. That's it. It's like recording a deed. The court doesn't sign anything. There's no hearing. That's an example of a civil case that's filed. So that really skews statistics. There's a lot of other types of cases, civil cases in Superior Court that don't lead to hearings. People file personal injury suits all the time. That doesn't mean there's a court hearing. Somebody sues another entity for damages. Most of the time those cases are resolved out of court. By contrast, every single criminal case has a hearing. Somebody gets arrested or somebody's charged with a crime, they will appear before a judge. So I think more accurate representation is just it's about 50-50 in terms of what the judge actually spends their time on between civil and criminal.
Why do you want to be a Whitman County Superior Court judge? We'll start with Roger Sandberg.
Well, it's public service. It really comes down to public service. As I said at the beginning, this is a very important job. You're making important decisions that will affect people every single day. You're making those decisions. It's a hard job. I mean, you have to realize, and I think we both do, you make a lot of enemies, honestly. You really do. About every single case. A lot of cases, somebody's going to so-called win and somebody's going to lose. And there's a lot of litigants who are mad at judges, and you make a lot of enemies. So it's not a fun job from that perspective. You get lied to a lot. You ask somebody, why didn't you appear for court, in a criminal case? They're going to say, my car broke down, my cousin died, and you never gave me notice. And you hear that over and over and over again. And it's just, you get lied to, you hear the same types of cases. There's sad cases. I mean, this is, there's not a lot of happy moments in Superior Court. Adoptions might be an exception to that. But it's public service. I think the judge, the people that are appearing before the court deserve to have the person with the most experience, who knows what they're doing, knows the procedures inside and out, not just somebody who wants to, be judged, but somebody who really knows what they're getting into and is going to take the time with each case. So, thank you.
Jenna Brozik, Why do you want to be Whitman County Superior Court Judge?
So one of the reasons I went to law school is because I wanted to help people. I wanted to make things better for them, help them through tough times. I've been able to do that as an attorney, help them through one of the most difficult times in their lives. I think as a judge I can help people as well. So I can help them find resolutions. I can help them get quicker through the court system. I think I can make things better right now. There's some issues in the civil side in Superior Court that I don't think Mr. Sandberg is aware of because it is mostly criminal. The issues that we have is there are cases that take 6 or 7 years in court. And there shouldn't be that much. There shouldn't be that much time for a case to resolve. And I have a way to plan. I have a plan that's going to get those cases through. People need resolution to their cases. I'm going to make things better. I'm going to make things quicker. I'm going to have my goal is to get 90% of the civil cases resolved within a year or within 2 years. I'm planning to have a mediation clinic. So there's a lot of, like in family law cases, mediation is required, but there's a lot of people out there that don't have the money for a mediator. They're about $350 an hour. How could you make it required if these people can't even go to mediation? I have a plan to have a mediation clinic that's going to be once a month for volunteers that are going to come, and I already have attorneys and mediators lined up. People that can go and get their cases mediated. The best thing to do, I think, is to help these people get resolutions outside of court because nobody wants to go to court. It's very intimidating, especially for pro se litigants, people that don't have attorneys. I have a plan to help those pro se litigants as well. So I think I want to run for judge, or I'm running for judge, is because I like to make things better.
Thank you. Explain your thoughts about sentencing guidelines, especially regarding mental health and drug abuse. We'll start with Jenna Brozik.
So as far as the sentencing guidelines, they are laid out in the RCW. So there's guidelines that the judges must follow, and they're mandatory. One of the things I think that we don't have in Superior Courts, we don't have a therapeutic court. We have a therapeutic court in district court. That means a mental health court. I think that, and it's very alarming actually, that the fentanyl cases here, as far as deaths, fentanyl deaths, related deaths, have drastically increased since 2022. So we have, I think we had 9 deaths in Whitman County since 2022, and there wasn't any deaths before that. So there's an issue here, and I think one of the issues is these people that are getting addicted need to get treatment, and if it's not treatment, if it's more appropriate, maybe they need to have some jail time. But as far as getting these people the treatment that they need, and as far as getting that kind of help, I think because it spills over into, as far as if they have an addiction problem, it's going to spill over into they have a crime that they've committed, their children may be taken from CPS, it all spills over into the court system. So we need to get these help for these people, and I'm dedicated to do that.
Explain your thoughts about sentencing guidelines, especially regarding mental health and drug abuse. Dr. Sandberg.
So first, I want to return to one issue that Ms. Brozik raised. She indicated that I don't know what's going on because I mainly practice criminal law. I think that is a gross misstatement. For the last 5 years, have been on the Whitman County Public Defense contract, which the county contracts with private attorneys, not solely, that is part of my practice. I also have, but for the first 13 or plus years of my practice, criminal law was probably 1/3 of what I did. So to suggest that I don't know what I'm doing in civil law is very misleading. As far as sentencing guidelines, the state, there are sentencing guidelines that are intended to ensure consistency statewide. If somebody is sentenced for theft, felony theft, and they've got 3 prior felonies, their sentence should not be drastically different in Whitman County than what it is in King County. That's the purpose for sentencing guidelines. Another misstatement is that we do have a drug court in Superior Court. Whitman County Superior Court has a drug court. And we put first of all, there's guidelines. It's not just up to the judge who goes into drug court. There are specific guidelines. If it's a dealing case, it has to be a small quantity. We don't accept violent offenses. We don't accept sex offenses. So what happens, most of the crimes that are going into drug court are property crimes where somebody's addicted. In addition to drug court, there are mental health sentencing alternatives already that are supervised by the Department of Corrections. There are drug offender sentencing alternatives. There's a family sentencing alternative. All of these are sentencing alternatives which are available statewide and which will be supervised by the Department of Corrections. So a member of the community court drug team, I support sentencing alternatives in the appropriate cases. Again, all of those have guidelines, usually no violent cases, sex offenses, things of that nature. So I'm happy to sentence people to sentencing alternatives when it's appropriate.
Roger Sandberg, how do you judge the defendant's motives and remorse without being able to ask questions?
It's just tough to give a general answer on a question like that. Every case is different. Of course, you're going to take into account their criminal history. You're going to take into account the crime that they have committed and which they're being sentenced for. It's a tough question to give a sort of a general answer. Some of the toughest cases you have are somebody who maybe has no criminal history whatsoever, but they're being sentenced for a relatively serious crime. And those have grave impacts for somebody, for their future. And so, again, if somebody's sentenced on something, most of the time there is a sentencing range which they're facing. That case is going to come to you most of the time with an agreed recommendation, or maybe not, but a recommendation by the prosecutor, a recommendation by the defense. After a person pleads guilty, the judge does have the opportunity to, because their right against self-incrimination is no longer present after you've pled guilty. So the judge can ask some questions, some follow-up questions. I think the most important indication of whether a person is going to be responsive to treatment or something like that is what has happened between the time that they have committed this crime and the time that they're coming before the court for sentencing. I advise clients routinely, if you get yourself into a treatment program, if you are submitting clean UAs, if you are towing the line, walking the line that the judge sets for you, you have a very good chance at sentencing of receiving a better sentence. But you got to do that. And some people can do it, and they have obviously a much higher success rate of probation. And some people don't do it. And those are the cases where people are going to have problems.
Jenna, Brozik, how do you judge the defendant's motives and remorse without being able to ask questions?
So I just want to clarify that I never said there's not a drug court, Superior Court. I said there's not a therapeutic court, which means a mental health court. Meaning the district court is the one that has the mental health court. So I just want to clarify that from before. As far as the question you're asking me now, as far as the defendant's remorse, as Roger stated, after a couple of times before the judge, that you can ask the defendant how did you feel about that crime, and are you going to get yourself together? Are you going to do things better? Are you going to go to treatment? A lot of times the defendant will say, yes, I am. Yes, I'm going to do things better. And people often, they don't tell the truth in court. So as the judge, you're going to have to say, okay, you're going to have to prove to me that actually what you're saying is what you're going to do. So you got to make sure that these people carry out what they're saying, and action speaks louder than words. So when you watch these kind of defendants, you want to encourage them because you want them to get better. You want them to be productive members in society. You want them to get out there, get off of the drugs that they're addicted to, or whatever the case is. And so as far as the defendant's remorse, it is important. And a lot of times the judge is going to be able to find out if they actually are remorseful or not.
If the defendant pleads guilty, please explain your sentencing procedure. We'll start with Jenna.
So as far as pleading guilty, that's something that most likely a lot of times ends up as a plea agreement between the prosecutor and the defendant, the public defender, or whoever the attorney is representing. So, or you've got a solution, or it's gone through a jury trial, and the jury has found that, actually, you asked me if they pled, so they pled, okay, so it wouldn't go to jury trial. So, yeah, basically, if they've pled guilty, I mean, as far as the sentencing guidelines, you just look at sentencing guidelines, and you determine how you're going to sentence the defendant.
If the defendant pleads guilty, please explain your sentencing procedure.
And so basically, you look at the sentencing guidelines, and you just follow the guidelines, and that's basically how you would proceed with that.
Roger Sandberg, if the defendant pleads guilty, please explain your sentencing procedure.
So obviously it depends on what they're pleading guilty to. I mean, in Superior Court, a lot of cases are going to start out as felonies, but sometimes a person will plead guilty to a misdemeanor in Superior Court. One of the differences between Superior Court and District Court is there is no probation department in Superior Court. And so if a person's pleading guilty to a misdemeanor in Superior Court, sometimes it's specifically done so that they will be on probation. And so there's a variety of things that you can do if somebody's on probation. Obviously, the incentive is do these things or else you face more jail time. And it's just experience that will tell you how to motivate people to do that. As far as Superior Court, again, the procedure for sentencing, just mechanically, is somebody pleads guilty, and sometimes there will be a Department of Corrections has to do a pre-sentence investigation depending on what they're pleading guilty to. So you would set out sentencing for a month or so for them to do that pre-sentence investigation. They would come back and say, hey, here's what we recommend. A lot of times people are seeking sentencing alternatives, a drug offender sentencing alternative, a mental health sentencing alternative where they need to do a mental health evaluation, a family offender sentencing alternative where they would, if you have children at home, again, a non-violent offense, they can be granted a family offender sentencing alternative. Sometimes these are agreed, sometimes they're not, and it's up to the judge to decide whether this person's a good candidate. Just because Department of Corrections recommends that a person not be given a drug offender sentencing alternative, the judge is not bound by that recommendation. Again, it just comes down to the person in front of you, whether you are persuaded by what they've done since this crime has been committed based on their criminal history, what they're telling you, whether they're a good candidate. And so, sometimes you're gonna get it right as much as you can, but you're not always gonna get it right. Obviously, judges get burned all the time, and try to avoid that.
Thank you. We'll start with Roger Sandberg. Have you ever made any mistakes or decisions you regret while working as a lawyer or judge? What did you learn from the experience?
That's a good question. As it's been kind of left off just saying judges get burned, and they do. And mistakes made, I'm sure there are some. And judges talk about these things all the time. We hear it multiple times a day if you're appearing before the judge, where the person's asking to be released, and the judge is saying, I don't know if you should be released. And the last, what I don't want the prosecutor to be able to tell me is, I told you so, this person shouldn't have been released. And nonetheless, the judge has to make a decision, and like I said, you obviously try to make the right decision every time, but judges, you're going to get burned sometimes. I was reading this book by Malcolm Gladwell, talking about how judges get these decisions. One of the points he was making was that judges make these decisions wrong, in the sense that they get they release people, and then the person commits a crime or doesn't show up for court. And it's like, well, that's not the only consideration of what a judge is for whether they're going to commit a crime or show for court. There's also a rule, a court rule, that says there's a presumption in favor of release. The judge is bound by that court rule. You have to release a person unless they're a danger to society or unless they're going to interfere with justice and so forth. So there's some factors that you have to consider there. So yeah, I guess maybe I didn't quite answer the question, but yeah, we try to not make too many mistakes as a judge, but you're not going to get everything right.
Jenna Brozik, have you ever made any mistakes or decisions you regret while working as a lawyer or judge? What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, this is a hard question because I would have to say that one of the decisions I made, I think, as a lawyer that I regretted making is I love having associates and I love supervising associates and helping them and teaching them as far as about the law and everything. I hired a Rule 9 intern and put in a lot of effort, and he was actually very smart. I helped him pass the bar, helped him do that. I trained him in family law. I gave him an office, and I spent probably 2 years training him, and then all of a sudden, or actually maybe a year and a half training him, all of a sudden he just quit and said, I can't do family law. That's it. I just can't do it. And he had a caseload of probably like, 15, 20 cases. And here my other associate and I were like, he just walked out. And so that was a really tough, as far as, I don't know if that was a mistake of mine to hire him. Actually, I'm glad that I did, but it's something that just happened to me where it really opened my eyes. If I put all this effort and training and then all of a sudden, somebody just walks out and you're stuck. Now I had to double my caseload. My other associate had to double his caseload. And so it was quite an experience. I guess moving in the future, if I'm not elected judge, I'm going to be very careful about who I hire, very careful about what their intent is and how long they want to stay here, because I put in that much effort and training, and I would like them to stay. So.
We'll start with Jenna Brozik. What skills do you bring with you personally to reinforce your ability to listen attentively to those who came before you? What skills do you bring with you personally to reinforce your ability to listen attentively to those who came before you?
I think some of the skills that I have is I am very compassionate. I have a lot of empathy for people. I care about people. I listen carefully. I'm a good listener. I'm very patient. I feel that I have a strong passion for justice, so I want to make sure that those people coming before me actually get the justice they deserve. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for judge, is because I've been in the court, in Superior Court for 14 years, and I've seen a lot of people not get the justice they deserve, and there was no reason for that. A lot of times it was either, the judge in a certain case wasn't following the law, wasn't following the RCWs, or decided to legislate from the bench and decided to pick one factor over others, when there was an RCW that had factors when they weren't supposed to pick that factor. So I feel like the skills that I have, I can listen very carefully, and I can consider both sides. I have a keen ability to see both sides of the equation and both parties, as far as what their viewpoints are and those kind of things. So I think I'd be a good judge.
Roger Sandberg, what skills do you bring with you personally to reinforce your ability to listen attentively to those who come before you?
So I think a lot of the things Jenna said, just you have to have patience, you have to have empathy. I think the question almost kind of presumes that judges don't listen attentively at some of the time. it's because they've seen the same cases over and over again, or for whatever reason. And I was asked that the other day, is that you find it hard to pay attention to this? And it was, no, not at all. And because, as Jenna would agree, I mean, these are dealing with clients. We know how important these issues are to their lives. If you have a family law case and somebody is facing their children being taken away from them, or just time with their children being reduced, it's a highly emotional situation. I don't think it's hard to find the patience and the empathy to listen attentively to the people that are coming before the court. They're very stressful situations, and so yeah, I don't think it's difficult at all to pay attention. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just, of course, what happens in court. There's a lot of preparation that you spend after hours reading these files, and there's a lot of reading involved. And so I mean, it's a job that takes a lot of time. So yeah, I think that pretty well answers the question. I don't think it's hard to find the patience and the empathy because the cases are so serious.
Are there any more questions? If not, this is the last question. Okay. How do you think you can make things better? How much civil law experience do you have in the past 5 years? We'll start with Roger Sandberg.
Well, obviously this is a question from a Jenna supporter. As I said before, for the last 5 years I've taken on the Whitman County Public Defense contract, part of it. There's 3 other attorneys who are doing it. But I've been practicing law since 2008. And again, probably 2/3 of my practice was civil. I have done hundreds of family law cases. I've done a lot of civil cases. I have done federal cases. I've done adoptions. I've done dependencies. So I've done so many civil cases. So I understand the implication is to make it look like Roger doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to civil cases, but that's not accurate. I've done thousands of criminal cases, certainly in the last 5 years. But prior to that, felony cases all throughout my time that I've been an attorney. In Whitman County, I think you have the opportunity uniquely to have sort of a wide variety of cases. There's a few attorneys maybe who really specialize in sort of unique areas of law. But for the most part, we're doing the cases that come in the door, which are a lot of family law cases, criminal cases, just a variety of cases, common type of cases. So, I haven't forgotten everything that I've done in terms of my legal career, and I still currently have, I believe, a divorce or 2 that I'm doing. I try not to do, if I have the choice, I prefer not to do divorces where custody is disputed. But I am currently still doing civil cases. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Jenna Brozik, how much civil law experience do you have in the past 5 years?
So I don't know who asked that question, but I just was going to put that out there. I've done a lot of civil law. I mean, that's my main focus. That's what I do. 2/3 of my practice is civil law, 1/3 is criminal. And that's exactly what mirrors the kind of cases that are filed in Superior Court. So I do guardianships, probates, family law, custody, dependencies, real estate disputes, protection orders. I mean, you name it. I also have 2 associates that I supervise, and one does criminal and family, and the other one just does family law. And so, not only do I have the cases that I have, I do a lot of estate disputes as well, and wills and trusts. I have these other cases that I'm So I'd say my caseload is like triple with the other cases that I'm overseeing. So the civil arena, I have a lot of experience. I've mediated civil cases quite a bit. So I've helped people find resolutions in civil cases as a mediator. I'm an adjunct professor of law, so I teach civil law as well. And so I'm an educator, and I have a huge background in civil law. Thank you.
Jenna Brozik, what do you think about the underrepresentation of women in the judicial system, and what can you do personally to fix that?
You know, I think there is an issue about not having a lot of women here that are lawyers in Whitman County. It's just a fact. We just don't have a lot of lawyers that are women in Whitman County. But also, we've never had a Superior Court judge that's been a woman in Whitman County ever. So, you know, one of the things I would love to recruit more women in the area. I could probably, if I'm not elected, I could probably try to recruit more women lawyers. But I think that, especially in this part of our, in Whitman County, we are definitely underrepresented. There's not a lot of women out there doing what we do. I also think as far as what's going to change that is those kind of procedures, like when somebody's appointed a commissioner, that is open up to everyone, that's not just handed over to whoever the judge wants to pick. And so if it's opened up to everyone, then everyone will have an equal opportunity for those kind of positions, and then they'll have equal opportunity for those kind of experience, which will help them have become a judge as well. So those kind of experiences help them do better in this society and help them, be better as far as getting to a point of having more female judges here.
Roger Sandberg, what do you think about the underrepresentation of women in the judicial system, and what can you do to personally fix that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, Washington State has actually, you know, we have 9 justices on the Washington State Supreme Court. 7 of those are women, and so Washington is sort of unique in that way. My law school class, I would say at least 60% are women. I think nationwide, I think women are going to law school at a much higher rate than men. So I don't know why, and I'm not, I have to think about it, whether Whitman County, certainly historically, obviously, has been primarily men practicing law in Whitman County. I have to think. I mean, we have several women in Whitman County who are practicing law, so it's probably not as distorted as people might think. I have 2 teenage daughters who I want them to have strong women models and role models in a variety of positions, whether that's judges or executives. I want them to have strong models. I don't think this. I would encourage people to not simply vote based on gender. I mean, I don't think that's how any vote should occur. I think you need to vote on the most qualified candidate, the person who has the most experience. And I've got absolutely. I would love to have a woman judge, but it has to be the right person. So yeah, I mean, I think this is it's an important issue. Obviously, we don't want there to be artificial barriers that prevent women from having positions that they should have. But again, I think it's just you have to have the right experience to have the position in the first place.
This will be our last question for the evening. Roger Sandberg, what will you do to help the people of Whitman County if you are not elected judge?
Well, I don't know, because I'm going to go to Mexico and I'm just going to sit there on the beach for a couple of years, and then maybe I'll come back and think about what I want to do. No, I mean, I have children. My children are still in the school district. My youngest child is 11 years old. We're going to be here. I would continue to practice law. I would continue to work hard for the clients as I've been doing. I like practicing law. You know, it's not what I set out to do. I wanted to be a professional basketball player, but then that stopped at about my sophomore year of high school and realized that wasn't going to happen. But no, this is a career that, again, I didn't start out wanting to do this, but I truly enjoy what I'm doing, practicing law, helping people with their everyday problems. I mean, I think I had the opportunity to do sort of more of a corporate practice in Seattle, and be an associate for a big firm and write briefs for big corporations that the firm might be representing, but that's not very fun. You don't interact with clients. You're not solving real world problems. I mean, they're true problems that have to be solved. I get it. There's major tax issues that corporations have to avoid. But I like dealing with people on a one-to-one level, whether that's helping them in a family law case, in a criminal case. People call attorneys counselors sometimes, and that's an accurate description, I think, of the job. You're often counseling people, whether that's on a personal level, on a legal level. So I would continue to practice law in Whitman County.
Jenna Brozik, what will you do to help the people of Whitman County if you are not selected or elected judge?
So, yeah, if I'm not elected judge, I will continue as well, being an attorney here. Every time I take on cases and I have a caseload, I'm always thinking about getting at least one pro bono person out there that I'm going to represent, somebody that can't afford an attorney, and often I'll take it on, or my associate will take it on, and it's actually gratifying to help people who don't have the funds to pay for an attorney. And you can be at a severe disadvantage if you go to court and you don't have an attorney. And when you have one, it can make things a lot better. For instance, this last case that I took was actually this woman who, and you've heard about it in the news, who her child got kidnapped to Mexico. Well, she didn't have the funds to hire an attorney. I did that case pro bono for her, made sure that she got her kid back here safely, and I feel really good about that. I feel like I can do a lot for this community. I feel that not only that, as I volunteer, like I said, in clinics, I volunteer for the hospital. This is how I can help people in the community if I don't become judge.
It is now time for closing remarks. You will each have 3 minutes. We'll start with Jenna Brozik. Time starts when you start. Okay. Yeah. Roger Sandberg, you now have 3 minutes to do your closing statement.
Well, thank you first of all to CC Hillman. I think she was the least nervous person on the stage, so she did a great job. And thank you again to everybody who has shown up for these debates and watching them on Zoom and so forth. I don't know that I need 3 minutes. I think you guys have probably heard us talk enough at this point, I would hope. But yeah, I appreciate that you guys are all taking this race very seriously. Again, it's very important decisions that have to be made, and we both take those very seriously. I mean, Ms. Brozik, again, I think she does a good job with her practice, and I've got nothing against her. She, like I said, does a good job with the types of cases that she's had. I refer cases to her when I've got a conflict or something like that. So yeah, I appreciate that she's running and she's taking this job seriously. And so that's it. I appreciate everybody's interest, and I hope that you continue to look into things. Obviously, I want your vote, but yeah, thank you.
Jenna Brozik, you now have 3 minutes for your closing remark.
Yeah, thank you for coming here today, and I appreciate everybody that came out here, because it's important to be an informative voter. So one of the things that I've said in a lot of my literature, and I've said in interviews I've had, is that the most serious cases, or the cases that have the most discretion in Superior Court, are the civil cases. Whenever there's a case in front of the judge, it's a civil, they have to make a substantive, they have to make a decision that's going to affect these people the rest of their lives. And yes, in the criminal side it's important too, but a lot of times in the criminal side it's procedural. You're going to have a arraignment, you're going to have a pretrial hearing. Those are going to be like 10-minute hearings. And then 97% of those cases are going to be pled to an agreement, plea agreement. There's only 6 jury trials last year. So a lot of what the judge is going to be doing is those serious decisions. Let's say the judge is going to decide an independency if you're going to lose your rights to your child. The judge is going to decide if you're going to have how much time you're going to spend with your children. So these are very, very important decisions that's going to affect people and their families for the rest of their lives. Now you have to have a judge in there who's going to consider both sides carefully, be ethical, know the law like the back of their hand. You need to have a judge who's going to give everybody a fair shot. And that's me. I pledge to you that politics, bias, favoritism is not going to be in the courtroom. I pledge to you that everyone's going to have a fair shot in front of you. And when people don't have, or they don't believe they're going to get a fair shot in court, that's when our system is broken. And I have seen, in my years of experience, in Superior Court, people not get the justice they deserve. There's no reason for that. In fact, there are catastrophic results come from that. So it's really, really important in this position. It's really important that you consider who you're voting for. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the candidates for participating, 2 candidates for participating this evening, and everyone who came. I guess I have my own little closing statement here. So there is still time to register to vote. The last day to register by mail or online is October 28th. We have registration forms available and we will be more than happy to assist you. Ballots are being mailed. If you do not receive your ballot by next week, contact the Whitman County Election Office. Election day is November 5th. Please don't forget to sign your ballot. This year's ballot will include 4 initiatives. The League has provided fact sheets on each of these initiatives, and they are available for you to take home to become a more informed voter. There are 4 Dropbox offices or locations in Pullman, and locations are listed in the voter pamphlet. Thank you.
Mix it up. Oh gosh. Shot.
I know. I used to work with Jenna.
You're a professor? Wait a minute. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Wonderful. Have a good night. Yes. Well, let's go. I don't remember. That was a little stressful. I thought it was stressful. That was actually anyway, it was stressful. I don't know if it's anybody else, except for Jenna.
I think what she spoke about why she wants to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That person.
When I saw her, it was very I don't know anything. I don't know.